Hello, hello. I think I'm live there. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. So first of all, apologies if you were expecting Lynette, but we did a bit of a last minute swap. So Lynette and she'll be back with you next week. So I'm Janet Goron from Tribe Sober, and this morning, as I say, Lynette asked me to take over her spot. So I had a look at what Lynette was talking about, and I noticed that the title of her talk was Get Sober and Set Yourself Free, something like that. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, well, that's an easy one. I mean, it's so true, and it's so easy for me, 6 years sober, to talk about that. So that's cool. I would say if anyone's watching this and they're about 3 weeks sober and they're thinking, oh, what is this woman on about? You do need a bit of sober time to get perspective, to be able to look back at your life and think, oh, it was quite different then. And in fact, today's podcast that came out at 10 o'clock called Tribe Sober, available on Spotify and Apple. I'm interviewing a lady from Australia called Deb, and she's got an amazing 17 years of sobriety. And I asked her what the benefits of sobriety were, and it must be quite tough, to think back. But straight away she said freedom. And I thought that was great, and it's so in sync with what I'm going to say. So what I did in my true Janet fashion was I just jotted down 7 reasons. They came really easily. I think I could have done 17, but let's settle for 7. 7 ways that sobriety will set you free. So number 1, it'll free you from cognitive dissonance. That's the psychologist's word for when you've got 2 conflicting ideas in your mind. I had a nagging voice in my head for decades which said, Janet, you've really got to cut down on your drinking. It's not doing you any favours. You're getting worse and worse. You're getting more and more dependent. So I always had this voice there. And then I had another voice going, but how will I socialise? How will I have fun? And it was just a conflict, basically. So it was my conscious mind fighting with my subconscious mind. And that conflict, it's like a churning in your stomach, and it feels very much like anxiety. So what we do is, at our workshops, for example, we help you to surface and overturn those false beliefs. And if you can't get to a workshop, then just pick up The Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and she'll explain all that subconscious stuff to you, because mindset is so important. If you're going to quit drinking, you can't do it on willpower alone. It won't last. You have to change the way you see alcohol. You have to change your thinking about drinking. You have to change your mindset. And you have to realize that alcohol adds nothing to our lives, nothing but trouble. So that's number 1, freedom from cognitive dissonance. Oh good, there's some people here. Hello, Roz. I just noticed you popped up on one of my old talks just now and said, I'm here. But that was the talk, I think, last week. So, there's Mandy and Lynn and Natasha, Mary Louise, Tanya and Roman from Stockholm. How exciting. Okay, well, lovely to see you guys here. So I hope you caught my number 1. This is number 2. And if you didn't catch me explaining that I'm here instead of Lynette this morning, we did a last minute swap, so she'll be back next week. So number 2, so we got number 1, freedom from that conflict. Number 2, freedom from guilt. Freedom from that awful waking up in the morning when everything's a blur. Not only do you feel terrible, but you can't remember much of what happened the night before, or certainly the latter of the evening. And you think, oh, what happened last night? How did I get home? And why isn't my husband speaking to me? I used to have that quite a lot. And also freedom from losing stuff. I don't know about you, but I lost phones, I lost jackets, and it was crazy. And of course, the biggest loss is memory. And now that I understand more about our brain and the alcohol that the damage that alcohol does to it, I understand that when we've really been drinking a lot and we have a total blackout, then it's not that our brains can't remember stuff. It's not that we've forgotten things, but our brain was so soaked in alcohol that we can't make memories in the first place. I don't know about you, but I find that really frightening. So we've got freedom from cognitive dissonance, freedom from guilt. Number 3 is freedom from failure. Now, as many of you know, I was stuck in what I call the moderation trap for an entire decade, because I was really trying to cut down, because I hadn't accepted that I would have to stop. I hadn't accepted that my drinking had crossed a line, and the only thing I could do was to stop drinking and then create a different kind of life. But I wasn't there yet. I was still thinking, I can control this thing. You know, I'm a strong person. I achieve everything I want in life. I can do this. Well, spoiler alert, I couldn't. But trying and failing to cut down over and over again, you know, I could last for 3 weeks with willpower and then it would all come crashing down. And every time I crashed, you know, my self-esteem was on the floor. I felt so miserable. But once I'd accepted, finally, it took a long time, I hope it doesn't take you that long, once I'd accepted that I could never drink again, everything got clearer, it got easier. Of course, I still had to do the work. I would say I had to do the work for 6 months, but then I was done. And there was no more going round and round in circles and no trying and failing. My mind was clear to think of other more interesting things. So that's number 3, freedom from failure. Just have a drink of water, excuse me. Number 4, freedom from anxiety and depression. I mean, this is ironic because so many of us start drinking because of social anxiety, or because, you know, oh, we feel a bit down, maybe a glass of bubbly will perk me up. That's kind of things I used to think to myself. But of course, alcohol is a depressant, and it's no good for our anxiety as well. Drinking alcohol is like pouring gasoline on our anxiety. And of course, if you're taking meds for anxiety and depression, then you're just cancelling out any good they can do with the alcohol. So stop drinking and your meds will start working. There's a surprise. And I'll always remember waking up a few months into my sobriety, and I just felt so calm and happy and, you know, convinced that I'd done the right thing. And I realised that a knot that used to reside in my stomach for years, probably for decades, knot of anxiety, it had just gone. It was wonderful. So forget drinking to alleviate anxiety or depression, because it does the complete opposite. Number 5, freedom from dieting. Now, I'm so old that I grew up in the 1970s. It's way back in last century. And our idol, you know, us young teenage girls, etc., it was Twiggy. I mean, if you don't know who Twiggy was, I'm sure you can Google her and find out. But she was a stick-thin supermodel, probably the first really thin model that became famous. And of course, we all wanted to look exactly like Twiggy. So we tried, and personally, I spent the whole of my 20s surviving on white wine and cigarettes in an effort to look like Twiggy, which of course I never achieved. But now that I understand more, you know, I understand why it didn't work, why dieting constantly, I mean, I was eating next to nothing when I think about it, but drinking wine and dieting, they don't mix. You have to make your choice. And there's 2 reasons why. Of course, wine's got loads of sugar in it, loads of calories, and that's why we kind of crave sweet things when we stop drinking. So there's calories in the wine, plus it makes us more likely to snack on junk food and crisps and, you know, sweet things. And I know after a couple of glasses of wine, I'd think, oh, I'm not fat anyway, and I'd start eating, and then I'd wake up and feel fat and miserable and hungover. So that's one of the reasons. And of course, the other reason is that alcohol is so toxic that all our body cares about is getting rid of that toxin. Our body doesn't care if we're fat or we're thin. Our body wants to keep us alive. So it has to put all its resources into metabolizing that alcohol, getting rid of it. And then, if there's a bit of energy left, then it will consume the food that you've eaten. But the food's at the back of the queue and it might not get there if you've had too much to drink. So that's why we're more likely to store fat when we're drinking alcohol. So my personal weight loss journey, which many people ask me about when they say, oh, Janet, I haven't had a drink for 3 weeks and I haven't lost any weight. Well, I'm sorry, but it takes a time, because I believe that it's all about our metabolism. And we mess up our hormones, we mess up our metabolism when we drink. So it takes a while for everything to recalibrate. So personally, I didn't lose any weight for 6 months, and then so I kind of stopped weighing myself. And then when I did weigh myself, I realized that I'd lost 3 kilos. So, it all happens at once. And that was the 3 kilos that I'd been kind of carrying unhappily for decades. So I was very happy about that. And the nice thing now is that I can really eat more or less what I want. Whereas in the old days when I was drinking, I just had to look at a piece of cake and I'd immediately put on weight. So that's confirmation for me that my metabolism is working how it should. So number 6. This is quite a funny one when I think back. Freedom to relax and enjoy going to a restaurant. Because when I used to go to a restaurant, well, first of all, I would always say, a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, please, even before my bum had hit the seat. I'd order my drink. And then I would make eye contact with that waiter, the wine waiter. I'd engage him in a conversation about which wine do you think we should order. And then he'd be my best friend, and I wouldn't let him out of my sight basically all evening, because I wanted to make sure that my glass was always full. And so to me, he was the most interesting person in the room, never mind who I was actually dining with, because of course he was the source of more wine. And I would also keep an eye on the glasses of other people sitting at the table. And I'd either be thinking, that person drinks almost as much as I do, to make myself feel better. Or I'd think, oh, look at that one. They've not even finished their first glass of wine yet. What is wrong with them? So now I just relax and I enjoy the conversation. So it's so different. And that brings us to number 7, which is the big one. And number 7 is freedom, the freedom to find your purpose in life. Because when we're planning our drinking, doing our drinking, recovering from our drinking, it keeps us busy, the weekends just slide past, don't they? And I think a lot of us drinkers, we're kind of hedonists, we're always looking for the good time, always looking for the buzz. And we convince ourselves that, we're very social, so, that's what we're like. And I had a lady from the Sober Spring group that WhatsApped me yesterday, and she said, I'm not doing so well because I've had a social engagement every single day of Sober Spring. And she sounded quite, proud of herself. But, I think we create those situations and we convince ourselves, we just adore spending time with people when we realise drinking. And we feel slightly less guilty than if we're at home drinking alone. So, finding our purpose and meaning in life, which is the most important thing. And I meant to have my Viktor Frankl quote beside me, but in fact I've forgotten it, but let me see what I can remember from it. I know lots of you are Viktor Frankl fans, and his book is just mind-blowing, and this quotation I like. I use it on the workshop, so let me see. I'm sure this isn't 100% accurate, but the theme is our life, is not about being happy, I think Freud said that, or about being powerful, which Adler said. It's in fact finding more meaning and purpose in our life. And of course that's so true. And when we stop drinking, we have time. and we calm down a bit and we get more reflective, and we have the mental space to think about deeper things than, when am I getting my next drink. So I've talked about the void in the past, and the void is really that low mood that can hit you in early sobriety, and you really need to be aware of that. And I always used to say to people, beware of that low a few months into sobriety, because I know when it hit me, I was very tempted to start drinking again, because I thought, oh, if this is sobriety, maybe it's not for me. It's so boring and so grey and ugh. But in fact, my low passed, as you all know. But I used to advise people just to be patient. But now that we've met the fabulous Loretta Bruning, she's explained to us that all we actually need is a project. If we can get some kind of project and then start achieving mini projects towards that big project, then we can avoid that early sobriety low. And of course, for me, subconsciously, I'd kind of done that because I decided to start Tribe Sober, and then I had to get all the mini goals on the way to launching Tribe Sober. So I would say if you're in that low and you're not sure what to do, then kind of welcome the void. Don't fear it. Think, right, this is the magic space. In fact, I remember, I think it's Lebo, I did a podcast with a lady that talks about liminal space. So that is another word for the void. And that's where the magic happens, really. It doesn't feel much fun for a while, but eventually your creativity will come back and you'll start getting ideas and you'll think, oh, what about this? What about that? And just, start trying things. I had lunch with our lovely Monica yesterday, and she was telling me she's going to start making children's clothes, and that's fantastic. And she's only had that idea because she's 4 months sober. She never would have thought of that before. So yeah, that's my 7 things. So I do hope that members and Sober Spring people are going to join the Zoom cafe this afternoon, because we've got our lovely neuroscientist from Texas, Stacey, joining us. She just posted on Instagram how excited she is that she's going to South Africa today. So that's really sweet. But she's great fun, and she's got fantastic advice for us about the neural pathways and about happy brain chemicals. So if you're watching this and you're not in the tribe, or you're not part of our Sober Spring Challenge, then you can email me, janet@tribesober.com, and you're very welcome to attend the Zoom cafe, which happens at 4:30 South African time. You can come along as a guest. And of course, we're still taking registrations for Sober Spring 2. The second Sober Spring bus sets off on the 27th of September. It's 66 alcohol-free days with online audio and community support. So if you're not yet on the challenge, then give it a go. Just go to tribesober.com and you'll find all the information. Okay, so not quite as long as usual. I hope that's okay, but it was short notice, wasn't it, Lynette? So let me have a look. Natasha, hello Natasha and Lynn. Yes, Lynn, you're our guest at the Zoom Cafe next week, so we're looking forward to that. Hello Ross from Spain, and Mandy. Hello Marie-Louise. Tanya, hi Tanya. Roman. Yes, freedom from conflict and losing, and bruises. Yes, those bruises are mad, really. I used to call them UDIs, unidentified drinking incidents, because you'd have no memory of banging yourself or anything, but you suddenly find this big bruise on your leg or something. You think, oh my God. Oh, Deb from Australia. I hope you said that I mentioned your interview when you said that sobriety's brought you freedom. And yes, that's funny. So yeah, I hope everyone listened to the podcast, which was Deb. I hope you've heard it, Deb. Please share it with your guys. So that's funny. Deb used to use her alcohol, and she thought people came into her house to steal it. That's a good one. Oh, Deb, good grief. I'm glad I didn't know you in my drinking days. I think we would have been quite a pair. moderation, not in my anxiety yet. Lynette, her anxiety has improved 100%. I've coached people for months that have told me that they were in therapy for years about their anxiety and on all sorts of meds, and then I get them to stop drinking for a few months and the anxiety's gone, so they sack their therapist. So hope there's not too many therapists that hate me out there. Twiggy was like a stick insect indeed. Yeah, not getting my share of the wine. Yes, absolutely. So Frankl quotes Nietzsche: "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful, isn't it, Lynn? Because if anybody doesn't know Viktor Frankl, he was at a concentration camp in Auschwitz, where obviously everyone was under the most appalling conditions. But he was interested, because he was a psychologist, in why some people survived and some people didn't. And he concluded, that people who had meaning, people that still, believed that they could reunite with their family, that kind of kept them going. Welcome the void, yeah. Oh goody, Mandy's coming to hear Stacey. Oh good, Lynn's not forgotten. I do like to remind things. Hello Lucy, lovely Lucy. Hope you're coming to Zoom. And Deb, you've not listened yet, but you will. So I hope you like the podcast, Deb. I've edited a little bit, but not too much. So okay, guys. So that's me done. Really looking forward to seeing you all at the Zoom cafe. I think it's going to be a blast. Bye.